The night sky above Earth looked quiet, but in the silence of space something strange was happening. Far beyond the moon, machines on satellites picked up a sound. It was not a normal sound. It was a signal. At first the computers thought it was noise, just broken radio waves from space, but then the pattern repeated again and again like a heartbeat. Scientists at the Global Space Center were confused. They checked the systems 3 times, but the signal did not stop. Dr. Elias Kane, a scientist with sharp eyes and a restless mind, leaned forward over the screen. He had worked many years on space communication, but this was different. The signal was not random. It carried order, like someone was speaking in a hidden language. He played the recording again. The sound echoed in the room, soft but heavy, like a whisper of warning. The message came in short bursts. Long pause, then sound. Long pause, then sound. Dr. Kane's heart beat faster. His team looked at him for answers. "It cannot be natural," he said slowly. "Someone is trying to speak to us." The words filled the room with silence. Everyone knew what he meant. If the signal was real, it meant intelligence beyond Earth. News spread quickly to governments and military leaders. Some wanted to hide it, fearing panic among people. Others wanted to study it, dreaming of new technology. But the signal did not wait for debate. It grew stronger, sharper, as if whoever was sending it knew they had been found. For days, Dr. Kane worked without sleep. His eyes burned, his hands shook, but he kept decoding the signal. Finally, he found fragments of meaning. The signal was broken, but a few words were clear. He read them aloud to his team. Decision. Save. Destroy. The words made no sense together, yet they carried a heavy weight. The room fell cold. The scientists exchanged worried looks. What decision? Whose decision? And why save or destroy? Before they could find more, the signal suddenly stopped. The screens went black. The sound ended. Everyone stared at the silence, as if the universe had closed its mouth. Governments around the world called secret meetings. Military generals spoke of danger. They whispered about invasion. But Dr. Kane felt something different. He did not feel attack. He felt warning, like someone far away was asking for help, or maybe asking for judgment. At night, Kane sat alone in his office, staring at the empty monitor. He could still hear the echo of the last sound. His mind played with questions. Why Earth? Why now? Why him? The fragments repeated in his head. Decision. Save. Destroy. The words were like a key, but the door they opened was still hidden. Outside, the world continued with daily life, unaware that something in deep space had spoken to humanity. Only a handful of people knew the truth, and they were not sure if they should tell the world. Dr. Kane, however, knew one thing. The message was not finished. Whoever sent it would return, and when they did, a choice would have to be made. As he closed his eyes, he felt both fear and hope. Somewhere in the galaxy, someone had reached out, and Earth had answered. The night after the signal went silent, Dr. Elias Kane sat at his desk surrounded by empty coffee cups. His office smelled of old paper and buzzing machines, but his mind was alive. He replayed the fragments again and again. The words seemed to echo in his brain. Decision. Save. Destroy. He knew these words were not random. They carried intention. They carried warning. Kane's team begged him to rest, but he refused. He believed the signal was still inside the data, hidden in layers no one else had seen. Hours turned into days. The world outside moved on, but Kane stayed locked inside the laboratory. Finally, his tired eyes caught something strange. Between the gaps of the signal, there were patterns like fingerprints. Not human fingerprints, but marks of a mind, a design too sharp, too careful to be natural. He called his assistant Mira to the screen. She was young but brilliant. Together they studied the data line by line. Her voice shook as she whispered, "It's like someone left a code inside the silence." Kane nodded slowly. Yes, a hidden truth. With trembling hands, they ran the signal through a new filter. This time the computer revealed broken shapes, like symbols carved into the waves of sound. Circles, lines, strange angles. It looked like a forgotten language. Mira gasped. It's writing. Kane's heart pounded. Not just writing, he said. It is a message for us. But the more they studied, the more they saw something terrifying. The symbols did not only speak of a decision, they spoke of danger moving across the stars. One symbol repeated many times, a spiral devouring smaller shapes. Kane stared at it, whispering, "It means destroyer, something that consumes worlds." Before he could share this discovery, government officials entered the lab, men in dark suits with cold eyes. They ordered Kane to stop. They said the project was now classified. He argued, "You don't understand. This is not about power. This is about survival." But the men only replied, "Survival belongs to those who control the message." The files were locked, the computers taken, but Kane had copied fragments in secret, hidden inside a small drive in his pocket. He could not let the truth vanish behind politics and fear. That night, he met Mira in a quiet cafe far from the city. Rain hit the windows as they spoke in low voices. "We can't let them bury this," Mira said, her hands shaking. Kane looked at the drive, small but heavy in his palm. If the world does not know, then the world cannot prepare. Across the ocean, rumors already spread in secret channels. Some claimed the signal was from friendly beings. Others whispered it was a trap. But only Kane and Mira had seen the hidden truth. The destroyer was real, and it was coming. Kane felt fear tighten around his chest. Humanity was blind and time was short. As dawn broke, Mira asked, "What if we're wrong? What if it's only a story written in noise?" Kane looked at her with tired eyes. "And what if we are right? Can we take that chance?" She fell silent, knowing his words carried the weight of every human life. Outside, the world laughed, worked, and slept, unaware of the storm that was building in space. Dr. Kane stood at his window, the secret drive in his hand. He whispered to himself, "The signal has not ended. It has only begun." And somewhere beyond the stars, far in the black ocean of space, something stirred. The destroyer was moving. The world changed one quiet morning. It began with a shadow near Saturn. Astronomers saw something on their telescopes. Not a comet, not a rock. It was moving too slowly, too carefully. At first, they thought it was one object, but as the hours passed, more shapes appeared. 5, 10, then 20. Huge vessels drifting into the solar system, their surfaces shining like black mirrors. Panic spread through the governments before the news reached the public. Military leaders shouted about war. They sent ships to watch the sky, weapons ready. But none of them fired. The visitors did not attack. They only waited, floating in silence, like judges watching from above. Dr. Elias Kane was called to a secret chamber deep under the Global Security Center. There, giant screens showed the vessels moving in slow arcs around Saturn. He felt his throat tighten. His heart told him what his mind already knew. "These are the ones who sent the signal," he whispered. Generals around the table looked at him with suspicion. "How do you know that?" one barked. Kane held up the secret drive he had hidden from the last investigation. "Because they told me long before they arrived." The room grew tense. Leaders leaned closer, waiting. Kane explained the hidden symbols, the warning of the destroyer, the decision that must be made. Some scoffed, calling him a dreamer. Others listened with pale faces. Hours later, the waiting ended. Every screen in every city on Earth suddenly went black. Phones died. Radios fell, silent. Then a voice came, clear and calm. It was not human, yet it spoke in perfect human language. One human must choose, one decision saves all. The words froze the world. Children dropped their toys. Workers stopped their machines. Soldiers lowered their weapons. It was not a threat, not yet, but a command wrapped in mystery. Kane stared at the screen as the voice continued. "Your kind stands on the edge. The destroyer moves through the dark. It will reach you soon if one among you decides. Life continues, if not, all ends." Then the signal ended, and the world was silent again. The governments erupted in chaos. Some demanded war against the visitors. Others begged to talk. Crowds filled the streets, praying, shouting, or hiding in fear. But no answer came from the sky. The vessels near Saturn stayed still, silent giants in the dark. Late that night, Kane sat in his small apartment. Mira was with him, her face pale under the lamp. They spoke to everyone, every city, every person, she whispered. Why us? Why Earth? Kane shook his head. Because something worse is coming. They need us ready. They need a choice. He walked to the window looking at the stars. He felt both watched and chosen, but the question burned in his chest like fire. Why did they not say which human must decide? The next morning he had his answer. A small drone landed outside his home, silent and strange. It projected a beam of light, and in the beam were the symbols Kane had studied. Circles, spirals, sharp angles, forming words he could understand. Elias Kane, your mind has seen the truth, the choice is yours. His blood turned cold, his hands trembled. Out of billions of humans, they had chosen him. One man with nothing but questions was now holding the weight of the entire planet. Outside, the world screamed in fear of the visitors, but Kane knew the true terror was not above Saturn. It was still coming, moving through the dark. The destroyer, Dr. Elias Kane sat alone in the chamber, his hands pressed against the table, his breath heavy, his mind full of questions. The world outside trembled with fear, but inside this room, the silence was heavier than stone. A beam of light appeared again, spinning symbols in the air. They twisted and joined until words formed in English. You have been chosen, Elias Kane. One choice will decide the future of your world. Kane's chest tightened. His mouth went dry. Why me? He whispered, but no one answered. The light shifted, revealing shapes, visions like windows into another place. He saw a fleet of burning worlds, stars dimming into dust, metal giants devouring everything. The vision shook. His soul, what are they? He asked with fear. The answer came like thunder in his mind. The destroyer. Mira, standing behind him, gasped at the sight. Her hands covered her mouth. The images grew clearer. Machines taller than buildings. Their bodies, sharp and endless. They moved across planets like storms, stripping oceans, breaking mountains. No life remains when they arrive, the voice declared. They are endless. They are coming. Kane felt his knees weaken. His mind screamed to deny it, but his heart knew the truth. The signal had been a warning. The visitors were not enemies, they were messengers. Why tell me? He asked again, his voice trembling. Why not tell the leaders of Earth? The light pulsed. Because leaders seek power, not survival. You seek truth, and only truth can save. The words cut him deeply. He remembered. The men in suits, the generals hungry for control. Yes, they would twist this gift into a weapon. They would start wars before the destroyer even arrived. He looked at Mira. Her eyes begged for answers he did not have. The light revealed two paths, glowing symbols in the air. On the left, a symbol of union, human and alien hands joined, a promise of alliance. On the right, a symbol of fire, human, weapons raised high, a promise of resistance without help. You must choose, the voice said. Stand with us, or stand alone. Kane's thoughts raced. If he chose alliance, humans might survive, but at the cost of freedom. If he chose resistance, humans might die, but at least they would die free. The weight crushed him. No man should hold such power, and yet it was his alone. Mira stepped closer. Elias, listen. This is bigger than freedom. This is life itself. If they are right, we cannot fight alone. Her voice shook with fear but also with hope. Kane turned away, staring at the shadows. He thought of Earth's history. Wars fought over pride, nations burning because of greed. Would humanity really unite, even with this choice? The light pulsed brighter. Time is short, the destroyer is moving. The longer you wait, the closer it comes. Kane felt the seconds ticking like a drum inside his skull. The world outside did not know of this moment. They shouted in the streets, demanded answers, but only he faced the truth. He looked again at the two glowing paths. His voice cracked. If I choose wrong, what happens? The answer was simple. Then all ends. His heart pounded, sweat rolled down his neck. He wanted to scream, to run, to hide. But there was no escape. The fate of Earth now balanced on his single choice. Alliance or resistance. Trust or pride. Life or death. The beam of light flickered, the symbols shook like flames in wind. Decide, the voice whispered. Decide, and your world continues, or it ends forever. Kane's trembling hand lifted, reaching toward the glowing symbols. Behind him, Mira cried out, "Wait, Elias, think." But there was no more time to think. The choice glowed before Elias Kane like fire, but his hand froze in the air. In that moment, the weight of billions pressed down on him. The fate of Earth, the lives of every man, woman, and child, all tied to one decision. His fingers shook. His breath came fast, but then the light dimmed and the voice whispered, "Soon you must choose, but not yet." The symbols vanished, leaving only silence. Kane stumbled back, his body weak. Mira caught him before he fell. "They left," she whispered. "They want you to think first." But Kane's mind did not rest. Instead, it filled with fear, doubt, and voices of his own past. The next day, the governments demanded answers. In a secret hall filled with generals, presidents, and ministers, Kane was dragged in like a prisoner. On the giant screen, news played, crowds were rioting. Some people prayed to the visitors, others cursed them as demons. The world was splitting apart. A general slammed his fist. "Tell us what they want." Kane looked at them with tired eyes. "They want me to choose. They want me to decide if Earth stands with them or against them." The room exploded with angry voices. One leader shouted, "You are lying. Why would they choose you? A simple scientist." Another barked, "If this is true, then you cannot be trusted." One man should not hold such power. Kane lowered his head. Their words cut deep. He asked himself the same question every hour. Why him? Why not a leader, a soldier, a president? Why not someone stronger? He was only a man who studied signals, a man who searched for truth. The generals argued. Some demanded to fight, some demanded surrender. One minister said, "We cannot give our freedom to outsiders." Another cried, "We cannot fight a storm with bare hands." The chamber shook with division, louder and louder, until Kane's voice broke through. "If we fight alone, we die. If we choose alliance, we may live." The room fell quiet, but only for a moment. Then the arguments began again, louder, sharper, filled with suspicion. Kane felt the doubt rising inside himself. His words had no power. His truth had no weight. If the leaders did not trust him, how could he trust himself? That night, Kane sat in darkness, Mira by his side. "You don't believe in yourself," she whispered, "but they chose you for a reason." He shook his head. "I am only human, Mira. I make mistakes. If I choose wrong, the world ends. How can I carry that?" Her hand touched his, soft but firm. "Because no one else can. Maybe they saw something in you that you cannot see." But doubt still gnawed at him. He remembered the symbols, the glowing paths, and the warning voice. What if the visitors were lying? What if their offer of alliance was only a trap? What if trusting them brought death faster than resisting? The destroyer haunted his thoughts. He saw the images again. Oceans boiling, cities torn apart, skies burning. But were those visions real, or were they crafted to push him? His heart beat heavy with fear. His mind twisted with endless questions. For the first time, Elias Kane wished the choice belonged to someone else. But it did not. The burden was his alone, Mira whispered before sleep. "You cannot let fear decide. Fear is not the answer." But fear was all he had left. Outside, the vessels near Saturn still waited in silence, and somewhere deeper in space, the destroyer continued its slow march. Closer each day, closer each night. Elias Kane closed his eyes, but sleep would not come. His heart asked the same question again and again. What if his choice did not save humanity? What if his choice destroyed it? The days after the signal grew darker. Elias Kane felt the weight of silence pressing against him. The vessels, near Saturn, did not move. The destroyer remained a shadow in the distance. Yet Earth itself was breaking apart. Crowds filled the streets with anger. Some shouted for peace, others shouted for war, and some demanded Kane's death. He had become a symbol, not of hope, but of fear. Inside the government halls, the air grew heavy with secrets. Kane noticed the whispers first. Leaders leaving meetings early, generals refusing to look him in the eye. Mira warned him. Something is wrong. They are planning something without you. Kane tried to believe it was nothing, but the truth soon revealed itself like a knife in the dark. Late one night, he followed two men in black suits who slipped into a restricted wing of the facility. His footsteps were quiet, his heart loud. He pressed his ear to a steel door and heard voices. "The scientist is weak," one voice said. "He hesitates, he doubts, he cannot be trusted with this power." Another voice replied, "We will not wait for him. The technology the visitors offer will be ours. With it, we control Earth, not them." Kane's blood turned cold. He pushed the door slightly, peering into the room. Inside, generals stood around a glowing table showing alien designs. The very symbols Kane had seen, now twisted into blueprints for weapons, missiles, cannons, machines of war. "They're not planning to save Earth," Kane whispered to himself. "They're planning to rule it." He stumbled back, fear rushing through him. The sound of a boot echoed behind him. A soldier grabbed his arm. "Dr. Kane, you should not be here." They dragged him inside the room. The generals looked at him with eyes like stone. One of them smirked. "So the chosen man spies on his own protectors?" Kane's voice shook. With anger. "You don't understand. The visitors came to help us fight the destroyer, not to hand us weapons for your power games." The general leaned close, his voice low and sharp. "Help is weakness. If we take their technology, we don't need them. We will become the masters, not the slaves." Mira burst into the room, her voice desperate. "You'll kill us all. The destroyer cannot be beaten alone." The generals laughed. "Or maybe it does not exist at all. Maybe the destroyer is only a story to trick us. Maybe the real danger is those ships waiting above." "Saturn." Kane's chest tightened. He saw the truth in their eyes. They did not care if the destroyer was real. They only cared about power. "Elias Kane," the general said coldly, "you will remain silent. If you speak against us, you will vanish." Just like others who asked too many questions, they released him, but the warning burned in his mind. That night, Kane told Mira, "We cannot trust them. They will betray the visitors. They will betray all of us." Her hands shook as she whispered, "Then what do we do?" Kane looked out the window at the night sky. The black vessels near Saturn glowed faintly in the dark. "We tell the truth," he said, "even if it kills us." But even as he spoke, the lights of the city below flickered. Reports came of strange movements near the alien ships, missiles being prepared, troops being mobilized. The betrayal had already begun. Kane realized with horror that humanity was about to attack its only chance of survival. And when the destroyer arrived, Earth would stand alone, broken and blind. The night sky above Earth burned with silent tension. The alien vessels still floated near Saturn, calm and unmoving. Yet on Earth, the armies prepared for war. Missiles were rolled out of bunkers, ships loaded with weapons, satellites armed in orbit. The betrayal Kane feared was now real. Humanity was about to strike first. Inside the Global Command Center, generals shouted orders. Their faces glowed red in the light of screens showing targets. "They wait for us to trust them," one barked. "But we will show them who rules this sky." Kane stood at the edge of the room, his fists clenched. "You don't understand," he cried. "If you attack them, you doom us all." But no one listened. Their ears were closed. Their hearts, blinded by pride. Mira pulled him aside, her face pale. "They will not stop, Elias. We must warn the visitors." Kane nodded, fear pressing against his ribs. He opened a secret channel through the signal device he still carried. The machine buzzed. Light filled the screen. Symbols swirled until words appeared. "They prepare to strike," Kane whispered. "You must leave. You must defend yourselves." The answer came calm and steady. "We knew this would happen." Kane's eyes widened. Then why did you come? To test humanity, the voice replied, to see if trust could grow. But now we see the truth. Before Kane could speak again, alarms rang through the command center. On the screens, missiles lit up the sky, launched from hidden bases across the planet. Hundreds of streaks of fire rushed toward the black vessels near Saturn. The first attack of Earth against its only allies had begun. Kane slammed his fists on the table. No, you fools, you've killed us. Mira's eyes filled with tears. They will never forgive this. In the darkness of space, the alien vessels stirred. For the first time they moved. Their surfaces rippled with light, shields like liquid glass wrapped around them. The missiles struck, explosions like stars blooming against their armor. But when the light faded, the vessels were still there. Untouched, silent, watching, the world held its breath, expecting fire in return. But no fire came, only a message. Your choice is clear. The voice echoed across every screen. You are not ready. Cities fell into chaos. Some cheered the attack, others screamed in terror. Religious voices cried out, calling the visitors angels, demons, or judges. Governments fought among themselves, blaming Kane for speaking to the aliens in the first place. But in the shadows of the stars, something else moved. The visitors had not lied. The destroyer was real. Far beyond Saturn, beyond Pluto's orbit, sensors picked up shapes, hundreds of them, moving with terrifying speed. They were not ships built by humans or aliens. They were storms of metal, sharp and endless, spreading like a swarm across the dark. Kane saw the readings and felt his heart collapse. They're here, he whispered. The destroyer has come early. Mira grabbed his hand, her voice shaking. Then there is no time left, Elias. You must choose now. But Kane's mind was broken with doubt. The visitors had been attacked, their trust shattered. Would they still fight for Earth, and if he chose wrong now, the destroyer would end everything? The screens flickered again. The alien voice returned, colder than before. Elias Kane, we offered you the path. You chose. Betrayal, now your world will face the storm alone. Kane fell to his knees. His eyes burned with helpless fire. Outside, the swarm of destroyers spread its wings of shadow, and Earth stood naked before them. The swarm of destroyers spread across the edge of the solar system like a black storm swallowing stars. On Earth, fear turned to despair. Crowds filled the streets, crying, praying, running without direction. Governments screamed orders, but their voices were lost in the noise of panic. The visitors remained silent, their vessels glowing faintly near Saturn, watching, waiting. Elias. Kane sat in the command chamber, his hands trembling, his face pale, his eyes hollow. He felt the eyes of the world upon him, even if they could not see him. The voice of the visitors returned, calm but distant. Your leaders chose war, but you, Elias Kane, were chosen for the decision. You have one chance left. Symbols filled the air once more, glowing paths that twisted like rivers of light. On one side, Kane saw alliance, the visitors standing with humanity against the destroyer. On the other side, he saw isolation, humanity standing alone, proud but fragile. The voice whispered, choose, and it shall be done. Mira stood beside him, her hands clutching his arm. Elias, listen to me, this is it. This is the moment. If you fail, there will be nothing left. Kane closed his eyes, his heart pounding like war drums. He heard the cries of the streets outside, the shouts of generals, the whispers of doubt in his own mind. What if it is a trick, he muttered. What if the destroyer is not real? What if they only want to control us? Mira shook her head fiercely. You saw the visions. You saw the swarm. Look at the data, Elias. The destroyer is real, but Kane's fear would not let go. He remembered the betrayal. The missiles launched against the visitors, the mistrust of his own leaders. Could he risk giving power to beings humanity had already tried to kill? Would Earth even accept his choice? Or would they curse him forever? The voice pressed harder, colder now. Time runs out, the swarm approaches. In 1 hour, your planet will face extinction. Decide now, Elias Kane. His hands shook as the glowing paths pulsed brighter. He whispered to himself, "I am only one man, I cannot carry the world." But the truth burned inside him. He was not allowed to escape, not allowed to refuse. The burden was his alone. Mira leaned close, her voice breaking. "Elias, you told me once that truth matters more than power. Then choose truth now, not fear." Her words struck his heart. He looked again at the two paths. One promised hope but demanded trust. The other promised pride but led to death. He reached out, his hand trembling. The symbols grew hotter. The chamber shook with invisible force. As his fingers touched the path of alliance, the voice roared, "Then it is chosen." The light consumed the room, wrapping Cain in fire and shadow. His body lifted, his mind stretched. Visions poured into him. Millions of stars, fleets of battles, screams of worlds, destroyed. He saw the swarm in all its endless hunger, machines ripping planets apart like paper. And he saw the visitors, not as conquerors, but as survivors, their own worlds destroyed, their people scattered. They had not come for control. They had come for redemption. Cain's scream echoed through the chamber as the visions burned inside him. When the light faded, he fell to the floor, gasping for breath. Mira knelt beside him, her eyes wide with fear. "Elias, what happened? What did you see?" He opened his eyes slowly. They glowed faintly with the light of the symbols. His voice was hoarse, broken but steady. "I saw the truth," he whispered, "and now the real battle begins." Outside, the swarm of destroyers broke into formation, a wave of death moving toward Earth, and for the first time, the vessels near Saturn stirred in full power. The war for survival had begun. The world watched in silence. Across every screen, every radio, every broken signal, the skies burned with light. The alien vessels near Saturn woke like sleeping giants. Their black surfaces cracked open, releasing rivers of blue fire. Weapons, not made for conquest but for survival, roared into the dark. Elias Cain lay weak on the floor of the command chamber. His body shivered, his skin pale, but his eyes glowed faintly with the symbols he had seen. Mira held him close, whispering, "You chose, Elias. You chose alliance." But her words felt like both comfort and curse. The destroyer swarm reached the edge of the outer planets. Thousands of black shapes moved together like one living storm. They ignored Saturn, ignored the visitors. Their path was straight and merciless, aimed at Earth. Data on the screens screamed warnings. Impact in hours, impact in hours. Panic spread faster than light. Cities broke down. Families ran into the night. People prayed for mercy. The visitors spoke again, their voice echoing through Cain's mind. "You chose the path of survival. Now humanity will fight beside us." But Cain felt no victory in those words. He felt only the crushing weight of consequence. The generals stormed into the chamber, their faces red with rage. "What have you done?" one shouted. "You gave our planet to outsiders." Another slammed the table. "You had no right to decide for billions." Cain rose slowly, his body trembling but his voice steady. "I had no choice. You wasted trust. You betrayed them. If we stand alone, we die." Their anger did not fade. They whispered of trial, of punishment, of betrayal. But Mira stood tall beside him. "He saved you, even if you cannot see it now." Outside, the first battle began. The visitors' vessels formed, a shield between Earth and the swarm. Blue fire streaked across space, burning through the machines of the destroyer. The sky above Earth flashed as though the stars themselves were at war. For a moment, humanity saw hope. Crowds looked up, their fear turning into awe. They cheered. As black destroyers cracked and fell into fire, children pointed at the glowing lights, calling them angels. But the hope was short. For every destroyer that fell, 10 more took its place. The swarm was endless, a tide that could not be broken. The visitors fought with fury, but their shields shook, their weapons dimmed. Earth trembled as fragments of burning machines rained down from the sky. Cain gripped the edge of the table, his voice shaking. "They are too many. They cannot be stopped. Mira looked at him, her eyes filled with both fear and faith. Then, there must be something else, Elias. Something they gave you, something you saw. He closed his eyes. The visions returned, worlds burning, fleets destroyed, voices screaming. But among the visions there was also light, a hidden path, a secret, not yet spoken. He gasped, his body jolting. There is a way, he whispered, but it will cost everything. The generals leaned closer, suspicion in their eyes. What are you hiding, Kane? One demanded. What secret do you keep from us now? Kane did not answer them. His eyes burned brighter. He turned to Mira. I saw it in the visions, a final choice. Not just alliance, but sacrifice. Mira's voice cracked. What do you mean, what kind of sacrifice? Kane's hands trembled as he looked out the window at the sky burning with war. The destroyer cannot be beaten with weapons alone. To end this, something must be given, something no one else can give. The chamber shook as another wave of destroyers struck the visitors' line. Explosions lit the heavens, screams filled the airwaves. Kane fell to his knees, his voice breaking. My choice has begun the battle, but my life may have to end it. The skies above Earth were torn open. Light and shadow clashed as the visitors fought the endless swarm. Cities shook as fragments of burning machines rained down. Oceans boiled. Where fire fell, the world was drowning in both fear and hope. But inside the command chamber, Elias Kane saw only one truth. The destroyer would not stop, not unless he gave what the visions demanded. Mira clung to his arm, her eyes wide. Elias, tell me, what did you see? What sacrifice? Kane's voice was heavy, broken but steady. I saw myself, Mira. I saw my life as the key. The visitors did not choose me only to decide. They chose me to pay the price. The generals laughed at his words. One slammed the table. Nonsense. You speak like a madman. Another shouted, We need weapons, not riddles. Fight with steel, not with your life. But Kane shook his head slowly. You still don't understand. The destroyer cannot be beaten with weapons alone. They feed on energy, on power. Every shot we fire only makes them stronger. The visitor's voice filled the chamber again, calm but full of sorrow. Elias Kane has seen the truth. The swarm cannot be destroyed by war. It can only be turned away by a gift, a life that carries the choice of humanity. The room fell silent. Leaders turned pale. Soldiers stared at Kane with disbelief. Mira cried out, No, it cannot be him. There must be another way. But the voice continued. One, human, chosen by the signal, must join with us, must become the beacon. His life will call the swarm away. His end will be your survival. Kane's chest ached as the words sank deep. He remembered his lonely nights searching the stars, never knowing that one day the stars would answer. Now they had, but with an answer that burned. Mira grabbed his shoulders, her voice desperate. Elias, you cannot give yourself to them. Let someone else, anyone else. He held her hands gently, his eyes soft but firm. It must be me, Mira. They chose me. Not for power, not for pride, but for sacrifice. The swarm broke through another line of defense. The visitors' shields dimmed. The sky flashed with dying light. The chamber shook, alarms screamed, and the generals fell into silence. For the first time they had no words. They saw what Kane already knew. Humanity's weapons were useless. Their only hope was him. Kane stood, his body weak, but his voice strong. Do not see me as a prisoner of this choice. See me as a bridge. If my life can save billions, then it is worth it. Mira collapsed against him, tears burning her face. Elias, please don't leave me. He kissed her forehead, whispering, I will not leave you. I will live in the survival of our people, in the breath of every child who sees tomorrow. The visitors sent a beam of light through the chamber, a doorway of energy. Step forward, Elias Kane, and the swarm will turn. The voice said, Your choice will be complete. Kane looked back one last time, at Mira, at the generals, at the world he was about to leave. Fear trembled in his heart, but behind it was peace. He walked slowly toward the light, each step heavier than the last. Mira screamed, trying to run after him. Soldiers held her back, her voice breaking into the air. "Elias, don't, please, don't." Kane stopped at the edge of the beam, his body glowing in its strange light. He turned his head, his final words soft but unshaken. "Tell them. One human's choice can save them all." And then, he stepped into the light. The chamber filled with light. Elias Kane's figure vanished into the beam. His body dissolved, not into death, but into something beyond human sight. Mira fell to her knees, screaming his name. Her tears hit the floor like broken glass. The generals stood in silence, faces pale, their power meaningless now. Above Earth, the alien vessels blazed with new energy. They were no longer only machines, they carried Kane's choice, Kane's life. From their cores a beacon spread, a wave of light that reached into the dark sea of space. The destroyer swarm froze, their endless movement halting like statues of metal. The beacon grew brighter, pulsing like a heartbeat. Kane's heartbeat. Mira looked up at the screens, her breath caught. She heard his voice inside her mind, soft but steady. "Do not cry, Mira. This was the path. This was the truth." She whispered into the air. "Elias, you saved them." The destroyers twisted in the light, as if confused, their black shapes bent away, turning from Earth, turning from the solar system like a tide pulled back by an unseen force. They drifted into the distance, their endless hunger drawn elsewhere. The skies above Earth cleared, the stars shone again, and humanity lived. On the streets, people cheered. Millions raised their hands to the sky. They did not know the price, only the miracle. Children laughed. Families embraced, the world breathed again. But Mira knew, the visitors knew, and the silent stars knew. The price had been one man. The alien voice returned, not across machines, but inside every human heart. "Your world is safe because one of you chose. One human gave what no army could. Remember his name." And then the vessels turned, moving slowly away, carrying the last light of Kane within them. They vanished beyond Saturn, leaving Earth in peace but also in silence. Days turned into weeks. The world rebuilt. Governments claimed victory. Generals spoke of strategy, but whispers spread of the truth. Some said a scientist made the choice. Some said he died. Some said he became light. But only Mira carried the real memory, the memory of Elias Kane's sacrifice. She stood at his old desk, the signal device still glowing faintly. Sometimes at night she heard his voice inside it, not words, only a soft echo, a reminder that he was not gone. He lived in the survival of every life, in the laughter of every child, in the breath of every dawn. Years later, children in schools learned his name, Elias Kane, the man who chose, the man who gave. Statues rose in cities, not of warriors, but of a scientist who looked at the stars. And yet, beyond the honor and memory, a shadow remained. For Mira still studied the signal. Her eyes searched the stars every night, and one evening she saw it. A new pattern, a new whisper hidden deep in the silence. Her heart raced as she decoded the fragments. The message was broken, but one word was clear. Prepare. Mira closed her eyes, tears on her face. She whispered to the night sky, "Elias, your choice saved us, but the story is not over." Above her, the stars shone brighter as if listening, and somewhere beyond the black sea of space, the destroyer moved again. The future was uncertain, but humanity was no longer blind, because one human had shown them the power of a choice.